Ladies and gentlemen, sports fans alike, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago. One of the couple, two, three best podcasts around. So sit back, grab yourself a cold one and a Polish sausage, park your keister in the French room, and listen to Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago.
In Chicago, you know that all sports rock. The Bears, Hawks, Bulls, Cubs, and Sox. Pick your favorite, you can choose. As long as the Packers lose. For everything you need to know, it's Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago. Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. This is your hosts Alex and Sean. We are going to be talking Bulls and Blackhawks, probably a little Bears, maybe a little baseball, all the funny business. But first, I'd like to thank our sponsor, the Rockford Ice Hogs. If you're not familiar with the Rockford Ice Hogs, they're the AHL minor league affiliate of the Chicago Blackhawks. What does that mean for you? You get to see the stars of tomorrow today at family-friendly, affordable prices. Sure, season isn't going on right now, but it will be going on soon. So head on over to icehogs.com, get yourself a hat, shirt, jersey, sign up for season tickets and more. Tell them Swerski Sports sent you. All right, Alex. For once, I don't want to start with the Bears because there's not much going on. We will get more in later on. And Brad from Over the Cap said he will join us either the week either next week or sometime after the Super Bowl to break down into deep dive into the Chicago Bears salary cap situation, which, while not on the magnitude of New Orleans or Philadelphia, is not a really good situation.
Is there anything for the Bears that is a good situation? I mean, really?
No, but we'll talk about that in a bit. Do you want to talk basketball or do you want to talk hockey first?
I've been waiting to talk some Bulls, and I think our listeners are waiting for us to talk some Bulls. And frankly, right now, I think they're probably the most relevant team in the city that's playing right now. So let's talk some Bulls. And, we're talking on a night where they got a big game coming up against the LA Lakers, and they're worth talking about right now. So, yeah, I'm ready to dive right into some Bulls.
The Bulls started off atrocious. I mean,
yeah.
Opening night was bad. They just looked bad. And honestly, I mean, I'm not saying it was Billy Donovan's plan, but he's using that as a learning opportunity. And he called out his team. These guys don't know how to win. It's a losing organization. And we went through this with the Cubs, is no matter how many good pieces you put together, until you change the culture of the organization and change from the lovable losers to a team that's ready to win, you can't actually compete. And this Bulls team was a loser organization.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there was so much just crap to clean out of that organization. And you don't fix a losing organization overnight. Even if you hire new people, even if you have a new philosophy in place, even if you explain everybody their vision, clearing out old habits and just old mindsets is not something that comes easy, and it's not something that comes at the snap of a finger. It's something that takes work, time, and patience. And, in the very beginning of the season, it was very easy to overreact to everything. We were kind of overreacting ourselves, but you realize that after all that you have to go through, you're going to see the growing pains slowly turn into positives. And right now, we're seeing still a lot of growing pains, but a lot more positives. And, frankly, the fact that it's turning around as fast as it is, I think is a big... It says a lot about Billy Donovan and the culture that Arturas Karnisovas is putting into this organization. I mean, Sean, think about it. You remember, 2 Fridays ago, that loss in Oklahoma City? I mean, that was beyond brutal. That was one of the worst losses you'll see. I mean, am I right? That was awful.
Yeah, it was not good.
And they were able to regroup, come back, and win a few games in a row. Boylan's Bulls don't do that. No chance.
No, and you look at what Boylan did, and he just got nothing out of the players that he had. That it's you got the bargain basement version of all these players, and in the offensive system was essentially, pick and roll, and either you're going to get the ball and you got to shoot it from the pick, or you're going to take the shot off the pick and roll. And there was no movement beyond that, and it was the most unsophisticated high school offense that you could run. And now you're seeing guys just grow into it and learning that movement off the ball is going to get you the ball. And just because you have the ball in your hands with a few seconds left doesn't mean you have to take the shot. And you look at Zach LaVine, and there's the growth in the last few games where you're seeing him, pass the ball for a late shot. And you're like that. And he's learning the differentiation between taking the last shot because he's the best player on the court and passing it off because somebody has a higher percentage shot than he does.
Zach LaVine this year so far has been a treat to watch, and I've always been kind of critical of him. He always had this scoring potential, but I always felt he was so one-dimensional. But the fact that he has improved his offensive game so much, I think that if he is just mainly, a scorer, playmaker, team player, so to speak, you can kind of look past the kinks, especially the defensive kinks. I mean, right now he's averaging 27.2 points per game. We're seeing him just hit absolute grooves in games. And like you said, he's not just taking every shot. He's passing the ball. You remember the game against the Rockets when the game was getting close and the Bulls needed a big answer. And he was able to find Lauri Markkanen, and Markkanen absolutely drilled that three-pointer really to drive the dagger into the hearts of the Houston Rockets. So, he's the crazy thing about LaVine is he's been in the league like, 6-7 years?
I think 7.
And he's only 25 years old. So if he's coming into his own now under a new coach, a real coach, then I'm more excited than ever to see what Zach LaVine can keep doing here.
He's legit moved from a scorer to one of the better players in the league. I would probably put him top 35, 40.
I mean, he's, at least in my opinion, the way he's going, he absolutely deserves to be an NBA All-Star.
He's just playing really well, and you're seeing improvement. Kobe White, you're seeing some good things out of him. You're finally starting to see some good stuff out of Lauri Markkanen. You're seeing this team start running the offense well. Honestly, their big fatal flaw is turnovers.
And that's something that is going to be a growing pain for a while, because as they're getting adjusted to this new system, and we've seen this team kind of have a rotating door of guys in and out due to like injuries. We've had some COVID misses during the season. So, a combination of that and just getting acclimated with a new system, you're going to see a lot of turnovers. It seemed a lot more lazy and careless early on. Those first two losses against the Indiana Pacers and who'd they play opening night? I can't even remember.
Atlanta,
thank you. Those were just careless turnovers. I think, you're still seeing a lot of turnovers, but I think you're seeing it more as growing pains than just carelessness. I mean, we mentioned it earlier, and we can mention again, they were just flat not ready those first few games, and their heads were just not in the game. I think you can watch the Bulls now, and you can watch the Bulls those first few games, and you see a lot more just natural growing pains with some of those things than just carelessness like we saw in those first few games.
I mean, you watch, even over, what are they, 15 games in?
Mm-hmm.
So 15 games in, you've seen a vast improvement in the players playing as a cohesive unit, running the offense, individual player elevation of their game. But I think, honestly, the thing I've been most impressed with is the bench. That honest to God, I thought the bench was going to be abysmal. And
me too.
Like, how are you going to get any scoring from this bench? If you don't score with your starters, that you're doomed. And I thought that was going to be an Achilles heel. The bench looks good.
Yes, it does. They're scoring.
They've figured out how to use Thad Young. Garrett Temple has. I mean, the cries of people on Twitter saying, "I'm going to get a Garrett Temple Bulls jersey." All right, Garrett Temple Bulls jersey. Otto Porter off the bench. Good scorer. Denzel Valentine has had his moments. So you've actually developed a bench. I mean, just imagine when AK brings in another actual star player on this team and to insert him in the lineup, you're going to have a competitive team in the East.
Yeah, no, I agree. And, we've talked in the past about big trade potential. I don't want the Bulls making any big trades this year. I would just love to see them stand pat and develop what you have. We know they're not going anywhere this year. Whether they make the playoffs or not doesn't really matter because you're either going to be a play-in team or you're going to not make the playoffs, essentially. I mean, so there's no reason to trade a bunch of assets right now for a big piece right now, in my opinion. When you go to the offseason, that's when you could start saying, look, we're going to take this next step here. Right now, I think you got to keep this roster pretty much as it is, especially with your core that you have here. And yeah, I mean, going back to the bench, who would have thought Garrett Temple would be more than just really a veteran presence? I mean, the guy is legit playing pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, he had 15 and 5. Was it last night or the night before against Charlotte?
Mm-hmm.
So you're seeing good things from him. And the thing is, it's a lot of people have talked, with all the extensions of the big name guys in the offseason, that there's going to be, the Bulls are going to have a bunch of cap room and no one to spend it on. And I think it was Mark Shanowski that was saying that if you look at it, it doesn't matter if a guy signs an extension with a team, because essentially when an NBA star says they want to trade, they get moved.
Yes.
So, sure, Giannis just signed a big extension, but who's to say in 2 or 3 years that if the Bucks stink, what's to say he goes, I want to be traded, and he gets moved, So it's a lot different than it was 3 to 5 years ago and longer, where you sign the contract, you're there. It's guys are demanding a trade and they're moving them. And you even look at, some huge contracts and they've been moved. So just the way that the dynamic of the league and the market have completely changed. So you have the ability to bring in a guy, even if he's under contract, to fulfill your team. And, I just trust AK to be able to do that when the time is right.
Yeah, I do too. And I mean, yeah, I get the concern that there are a lot of guys getting extended and that the free agent class isn't going to be very big. And yeah, you're probably going to have to eventually add a big piece via trade. I know I just mentioned earlier, I don't want them making any trades right now. And, that's how I feel going into next year. I should say going into the offseason. I don't want them to make any trades during this season. But once we get to the offseason, then, maybe we will find an opportunity to make a trade, or maybe it's further down the road. But, either way, I feel that what's best for the Bulls this year, for this season, is You keep developing as much as you can, as they are, and then you start thinking about the future. Now, here's another interesting thing that a lot of people want to point out, and it's very, very important to point out. If you want to talk about just immediate differences as a whole on this team compared to your Boylan Bulls, look at just the offensive numbers total. Look at what the team is doing altogether. And I know we're looking at a sample size much smaller than compared to last year, but you look at points per game this year compared to last year.
Bulls are
it is
top 5 in
night
scoring
and day.
this year right now.
Yeah. Who would have thought the Bulls would be top 5 in scoring?
And you know, going back to your point, is I totally agree with you. Is I don't want to see the Bulls make any moves that are long-term moves. You know, if you part ways with Thad Young or Satoransky or something, whatever, that's fine. But I don't want to move any core pieces. I really want to spend this year figuring out, getting the system in place, figuring out who can work in this system, who's a long-term piece and who isn't. You know, is Kobe White a long-term answer? What do you do with Lauri Markkanen? I want to figure that out. You know, that's been a big piece. Is, you know, he is gonna be due some serious cash. You know, even being a restricted free agent that has not hit his potential yet. You're like, this is a guy that we might have to pay $20 million a year for. You know, so it's a big decision off season. So you got to really figure that out. And, you know, if you make a move mid season, does that benefit you in the long term? Does that help you? I'm of the mind, you get your system implemented, you figure out who the pieces are that the front office and the coaching staff go, you know what? This is a guy I think we can win with, or this is a guy that, you know, he's nice to have, but we could probably upgrade over. And there are some guys that have player options that are available in the offseason, like a Kawhi Leonard, a Chris Paul, you know, Drew Holiday, that, you know, who knows what happens there. So you do have some players. I just kind of sort of want to see what you have. And honestly, possibly as big as Lauri Markkanen is, who is Wendell Carter Jr.?
Yeah, that's something that I'm really searching the answer for, because I see a lot of potential in him. It's just not coming together.
You know, I mean, he's out again tonight with the injury. And you've seen the cries for him to get taken out of the starting lineup. And you saw Gafford go into the starting lineup last night and play okay. And suddenly it's like, if the last 12 months haven't been weird enough, suddenly there's Daniel Gafford stands out there, and you're like, is this what the culmination of the last 12 months has been? Is that we have Daniel Gafford fans? Like, I don't know. I mean, it's I don't know if Wendell Carter Jr. has just hit a wall, or if this system just isn't working for him. But
I think injuries are a big factor as well.
It's who the heck is this guy? You know, I don't know who he is and how he fits going forward.
I know. Yeah. I mean, that's one of the areas where I'm really trying to find the answer, because I like the future of Zach LaVine. I think he is really trending in a good direction. And, you know, I know it's only 8 games in this season, but I am feeling much better about Lauri Markkanen early on, you know, than I did last year. I mean, you compare the numbers this year, again, sample size, I get it. But, you know, he's averaging 19.4 points a game this year, Last year, it was a career low 14.7. And you look at the three-pointer shooting last year, 34%. This year, if you round it up, 40%. I think you're seeing a different player and a player being used properly. So I still think that he is a better player than he appeared as the last few years. And you got to remember, too, he's only 23 years old. He's very young as well. And I do think that he really did struggle just in that Jim Boylan system, not only the system itself, but just the culture and the attitude. I feel like it was hard for him to get his mind fully into things under the Jim Boylan system, where I think here with Billy Donovan's system, not only is he being used better, but he's also just mentally there, if that makes sense. He's more willing to put in more effort because, sometimes it's hard to keep your head in the game when you got a losing culture. I mean, that's just my opinion right now. We'll see what happens by the end of the season. Things could look different, but I feel that right now, Lauri Markkanen is starting to show more of the player that we've been hoping in. Because, look, he's had some really big moments in the season so far. We've seen him late in games hit some really big shots. We mentioned the one against Houston the other day. He's putting together some really nice runs in some of these games that have been key.
It's watching this team start to come together. It makes me want to punch John Paxson in the face more for how much he trusted Jim Boylan and the way he churned through terrible coaches. It's so frustrating because you're like, all right, we have a competent head coach in here and he's implementing a competent system, and you're seeing players respond and develop. And not only are you getting positive messages from your players, you're getting positive praise from important players around the league. Kawhi Leonard was praising Zach LaVine and his improvement under Billy Donovan. That's something that's when was the last time you saw a star NBA player actually praise what the Bulls are doing?
The Derrick Rose era.
And when was the last time you saw a star player outside of Derrick Rose players? It hasn't happened. It's AK is going to make this place, AK Billy Donovan, and the way this team is improving is going to make Chicago become a place where people want to go, free agents.
Yeah, I think it says a lot that in just one off season, the appeal of the Chicago Bulls, not only to the league, but to the fans. I mean, this is the Chicago Bulls we're talking about. I mean, it's one of the biggest fan bases in sports, and they had just alienated their entire fan base the past few years to the point where we saw them so irrelevant that we were seeing games on weeknights at the United Center that were half empty. But now, I think the fans are all back. I think they're ready to watch. They're excited. And I also think that the fans understand where we are right now. Honestly, win-loss record right now, to me, doesn't mean a whole lot. What means a lot is that these players are developing, a culture is being reinvented, and that they're actually moving in a positive direction. I mean, we're recording this about a half hour before tip-off against the Lakers. And you know what? The Lakers might kill them tonight. Who knows? But even tonight would not change my mind that they are changing for the better. I mean, they were so close to beating the Lakers the other week and the Clippers. And I know normally there's no consolation prizes for close losses, but for a team in this position, all you're looking for is improvement. It's not something you necessarily look at the win-loss record. They're in a position where if you want to see improvement, you got to just sit down and watch the games. Don't just look at win-loss, okay, 7 wins, 8 losses, though I'm pretty sure that is an improvement from the start last year. But you just got to watch the games. Just watch the games, and you'll see the vast improvement. Because when you watch the games this year, outside the first week or so, you're not wanting to blow Bills fan puke everywhere.
It's true. It really is. I love the direction this team is headed. There's still some warts, but this is a work in progress, and we knew this was going to be a work in progress. And you watch the games, and you're right. Even from the beginning, from the get-go, you're seeing the improvement where guys are buying into the system. They're buying into what Billy Donovan is doing, and it took some tough lumps and some negative on the court learning processes to realize this, but you can watch them. You started real ugly, and then you saw ups and downs, and suddenly the last few games you're like, okay, this team is starting to put it together. They're starting to realize it. And that's all you're really looking for, to be honest with you.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that there's a lot to be said about the way this team just looks on the sidelines. I know it's a different time. People are wearing masks on the sidelines. They're socially distanced. It's not the same, but you just see a better energy. And I know it could sound cliche, but sometimes you need to look at the cliche things when things were so bad.
And you know what? I know we're way early on this, just way early. But the Bulls are, as it stands right now, are knocking on the door of the playoffs if the playoffs were to start today.
Okay. Meatball alert. Let's tie him to the chair and make him stop talking.
And I'm not saying that, but like, oh, the Bulls. I'm saying it because the East is terrible. The Knicks are the team that's ahead of them, and the Knicks are 8-9. The Bulls are 7-8. So it is just percent. It's essentially they're tied for that last spot. The Nets are only 9-8. They're clearly a better team. The Hawks are 8-7. The Cavaliers are 8-7. The Celtics are 8-6. You go all the way up to the second seed would be the Bucks, and they're 9-6. That's not that great of a record. The only team with like a pretty good record is the 76ers. The East is bad.
Yeah, the Bucks are off to a pretty slow start.
And it's funny. We said right before the first game of the season is no matter what happened in that first game of the season between the Hawks and the Bulls, that game played on that day is going to look a whole lot different than that game being played at the end of the season, because those are two teams on the rise, and they've got a lot of things to figure out by the end of the season. They're probably going to figure most of those things out. And I think that's going to be a fun game next time the Bulls play the Atlanta Hawks.
Yeah, and hopefully next time, too, the Atlanta Hawks don't knock down every single shot they just throw up blindly like they did that first game.
It was just like Atlanta was clearly the better team, but it's just like they couldn't miss.
No.
And honestly, it's, when you play a basketball game and the other team is just hitting everything, and there's some times where you're just like, they're hitting everything that's in the realm of hitting. They were just hitting everything. And at some point that just gets frustrating to play in, because you're like, no matter what we do, if we're not perfect, we're not catching up.
Yeah, and look, the Bulls played like shit that game. They were slow on defense. They didn't get back. They didn't have the right energy. But yeah, they were hitting just everything. It was nuts.
Yeah.
Hey, I got some stats for you.
Sure.
So we talked about Zach LaVine, and we were talking about where he kind of ranks right now going into Saturday's action. And this is from ESPN. And again, this might be a little outdated when you listen to this, but right now, Zach LaVine is 6th in points per game.
Okay.
In the whole league.
Huh.
There are 5 players ahead of him. And I want to play a little guessing game. Do you have any idea who some of those players are ahead of him, those 5?
Ahead of him in points.
Mm-hmm. And this is points per game, keep in mind.
KD.
Yep, he's second.
I'm trying to think of who's...
Another one's pretty obvious.
Bradley Beal.
Yep, he's first.
Steph Curry.
He's third.
Is Lillard?
He's fourth.
Giannis?
No, he's right behind at 7.
Jason Tatum?
Nope, he's 9th.
Doncic?
Nope, he's 10th.
Embiid?
Yes, he's 5th.
Okay. All right. I was pretty right in the ballpark there.
No, you guessed very, 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 very well. Yeah, Bradley Beal is averaging almost 35 points a game.
I don't think he'll end the season like that, but
I don't think so either.
But did you know that the Bulls are tied for the most consecutive wins, the current winning streak in the Eastern Conference? 3 wins in a row?
I should say I'm surprised, but I'm kind of not.
Such a bad division or conference.
Yeah. Now, I heard Stacey King yesterday say, like, they tied their franchise record for most games scoring, what was it, like 115 plus or 120 plus points, something like that.
Huh.
So there's a fun fact for you.
Okay.
I'd have to look at the exact stat, but he mentioned it on the telecast yesterday.
I mean, the Bulls are scoring a lot of points.
They're
scoring a lot of points.
And no, you can't compare these teams to the Jordan teams because that was a very different era. I mean, go and watch The Last Dance and you remember, oh yeah, basketball games used to end like by a score of 85 to 81.
Well, when you were allowed to punch the guy that was with the ball and it wasn't a foul, it was a different game.
It was a different game. And, it was a lot less 3-point shooting and a lot more in the paint.
So should we talk a little Blackhawks?
Yeah, I guess.
So this team is a hot mess. I mean, the defense are either young and inexperienced or old and slow. The goaltending, for the most part, has been atrocious.
It's AHL goaltending.
And
it's what it is.
And we finally got a good goaltending performance last night. But honestly, I don't know. I don't know what to take away. So I think, was that the first win of the season?
Yes.
So what are they, 1-4-1?
Yes.
So they've been bad. I mean, it's not just like, oh man, they had a bunch of close games. They've going into that game. What were they averaging? What was their average score? 5-2, 5-1.
Yeah, exactly. They'd given up 5 goals in every game up to then. They finally got a point in overtime, but they still lost 5-4. And then finally, they only gave up 1 goal yesterday behind Kevin Lankinen.
And I don't know what to take away from that game because the Red Wings just looked terrible. So I don't know if it's the Red Wings are that bad or if you finally are starting to see some life in the Blackhawks. But it's been a nightmare watching this team. There's nothing fun. It's hockey. I like watching hockey, but it's been brutal watching these games.
It has. And by the way, they're 1-3-1, but yeah, I mean, pretty much the same thing. 1-3-1, 3 points. Yeah, I mean, it's been borderline unwatchable. It was a nice game yesterday against the Red Wings. I enjoyed watching it, but yeah, one game is not going to change my mind. The only thing I can say is I'm kind of rooting for that Lankinen kid because
I mean, there's
not much else.
the other guys are AHL goalies. I'm sorry. I would like them to not be, but I think the goal was to eventually work Lankinen in there, and I think he was the guy that there was the future hopeful, but he's the only one that's had any life, and it's he had another game that he didn't look good in, so it's not like suddenly he went in and was like, now we've stabilized the goalie situation. He's got his warts too. He's a young goalie.
Yeah, I think he's 25 years old, and if I remember correctly, he was an AHL All-Star last year with Rockford.
He may have been.
But I mean, Colin Delia, we thought maybe was the future 2-3 years ago, and I don't think that's the case. And I was really rooting for Malcolm Subban. I know we haven't seen much of him, but I don't see anything there. I mean, there's a reason that he's in his late 20s and he's barely seen any NHL time.
He is next to none, I don't know what the team was thinking going into the season without a veteran goaltender.
I know. I mean, either play a veteran goaltender or play a guy you think could be part of your future. So hopefully, if Kevin Lankinen might be part of your future, at least you could say play him. But, I mean, in my opinion, going into this year, Delia or Malcolm Subban were not the future goaltending duo. So you're just playing AHL goaltenders for the sake of playing AHL goaltenders and not spending on anything. I mean, you could have brought in my opinion, you could have brought in some veteran cheap. And I'm not saying you could have brought in a good veteran in his prime, but at least somebody with experience.
Well, when you give up 5 goals in every game, that's when you need a veteran, because you're just like, all right, we need to stabilize this. We need to, you can't keep running young goalies through the mill like that. You got a bad defense in front of them. I'm not going to say bad. You've got an inexperienced defense in front of them. And if you don't have some solid veteran goaltending, you're going to have some goals put up on you. And that's what you were seeing. And now Kevin Lankinen has 2 games under his belt, and he had 1 good game, 1 bad game. So his stats so far in those 2 games are a 2.94 goals against and a 902 save percentage.
And the way I see it is, I think if he keeps playing at least respectable, he's probably going to be your most frequent guy going ahead.
As he should be.
As he should be, yeah.
He's the guy that if you're looking at your depth, he's your guy. I mean, he's the future as it stands right now.
Yeah.
So
I mean, Colin Delia right now has a 5 goals against average and a save percentage of .863.
Yeah, it's Colin Delia is not the answer. So I mean, it's you don't want to write Colin Delia off because he's in Kevin Lankinen and suddenly is like this younger guy, because they're only like a year apart or so. But I'm writing Colin Delia off because he's from California. What good hockey players coming from Rancho Cucamonga?
Well, I think the thing with Colin Delia is that we've seen a sizable chunk of work of his in the NHL, whether it was this year or 2 years ago when he was called up for a bit, where Lankinen is just getting his shot now, and this is his time to prove it. And, who knows? Who knows what Kevin Lankinen will look like even in just a few games, even in a few weeks, where you play a few more games. I mean, who knows? He could be good. He could be awful. We got to wait and see. But until we officially see it right now, I'm I'm not really counting on any of our current goaltending to be the long-term solution.
I think Kevin Lankinen has the best upside of any of the three.
I agree.
And
I agree.
I think they owe it to him to give him the shot to prove whether or not he's the long-term answer. And it might be the case where he is just not, he just needs another year under his belt, like this year and next year, and then suddenly he's a capable guy. But he's clearly been the most accomplished in a professional level of the three so far. I mean, most of it you're going to have to base on AHL, but he's been the most accomplished and he's looked the best in goal so far of the three.
And give him some credit against the Wings on Friday night because he made some pretty good saves.
He did. He actually did. There was some ones that he lucked out on, but he did make some good saves, and you saw some life out of this team finally. I just don't know. I just still have a hard time feeling that this isn't a team that's tanking.
Oh, they're totally tanking. Totally. And by the way, Lankinen did make the AHL All-Star team last season.
Okay.
Just saying.
Okay. So yeah, he's the most accomplished player in the professional ranks of those three.
Yeah. Now we look at the rest of the team. And all I can say is Petrikane is still incredibly good. Dominic Kubalik is still good.
Why isn't Dominic Kubalik playing more on the power play?
You know what, Sean, between Kane getting pulled early in overtime, and Kubalik just getting very little playing time early on, it truly does feel like they're just tanking here. I mean, really.
I don't understand the way the lineup, the lines that they've constructed. I don't understand the ice time that's been allotted so far.
Why is Strome getting more minutes than Dominic Kubalik?
I don't know. I mean, he's probably your second best forward.
Yeah, I'd say so.
I mean, the only reason he's not closer to being first is because the guy who's first is a Hall of Famer.
Patrick Kane is still so good, man. He's just still so good.
I just can't shake the feeling that they are tanking.
I mean, when you don't spend any money on actual goaltending, when you have this weird, wacky ice time, it definitely feels like they're tanking here. And, maybe that's why they did extend Colleton when they did, is for this rebuild. And, another thing I want to really mention, too, is the Blackhawks seem to be really high on Dylan Strome. And I think Strome is a good depth piece at best, but they gave him an extension and they're giving him this ice time. I don't see him being anything more than a third line guy. I know he's still young, but I don't know. Maybe I'm not quite as high on Dylan Strome as the Blackhawks are, even though I don't think he's necessarily an awful player.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. He's I don't know. He's a okay player. You don't build around him. You don't give him the important positions on the line. I don't know what this team is doing.
It truly feels like they're just kind of playing fuck it this year.
It really is. So
they knew they had no chance at winning.
And so now I'm quickly trying to Google while we're talking. Is there somebody that's super good in the draft coming up that they must be tanking for?
I mean, it's not like when we had Hughes the other year or when last year, when they were trying to get that first overall pick. There was that nice race for the first overall pick that the Rangers won. But I don't know. And you can go in a lot of directions here on where you would want to use a high pick on. Would you use another stud defenseman, or would you go after another
You
forward?
got to go after a forward. You've taken a bunch of top defensemen. You gotta get some forwards, unless you're planning to spend some money.
Well, they're kind of handcuffed with that.
Yeah. So then it comes to the elephant in the room is what the heck is going on with Jonathan Taves?
I don't know. A friend of mine texted me during the pregame intros last game when they had their first home game of the season, and Taves wasn't even there. Like, he wasn't like in a suit. You know how if they're not playing, they came in wearing a suit. Taves wasn't even there. I can't draw any conclusions. I have absolutely no idea what's going on. And I think you can agree with me that hockey is far and away the best sport at being tight-lipped about these things. Would you agree?
Agreed. And I don't want to speculate on what's going on with him because I don't know, and it's there's something going on in it. I just don't want to be speculative about it, but
And I don't either, but it's concerning.
it's very concerning that we don't know anything. It's the last two. I mean, there was nothing really to speculate about when Hossa, because that just sort of boom, there it is. But the last two times we had issues where there was left a lot of speculation were when Corey Crawford was out for a long time, and when Brian Bickle got diagnosed with his MS. What's going on with him, and that was a different case because he just wasn't playing well. He was traded already when he got diagnosed, so it was our speculation was, why is he not playing well? So it's a little bit terrifying that you're just sitting there going, our captain is nowhere to be seen, and we don't know what's going on. Nobody has an update. And there are these vague symptoms that could be something very treatable, or it could be something completely devastating,
I just pray that it's not career ending, because he's been in the league for 13 years, but he's not old. He still has plenty of hockey left. And, as it stands right now, he's got 345 career goals and 815 career points. I mean, he is normally on pace. I mean, he's on pace. If he, normally going into this year, he's pretty much on pace to be part of that 500 goal club, at least 400. I mean, he's only, 55 goals away from 400, and you'd think he could get that within the next few years normally. It would really, really be a shame. Now, of course, he has to do what's best for him, and I don't think there's any doubt that even if he never plays another game in the league again, his legacy is completely sealed. I mean, 3-time Cup winner, gold medal, Conn Smythe, All-Star. His legacy is sealed. He's one of the most important Blackhawks in the history of the franchise. You would just hate to see it end like this.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm hoping we don't. I'm hoping it's something that they figure out and he's being treated. It's just, as a fan, man, you're just sitting there completely in the dark. You wish there was some update.
Yeah. Selfishly, I do. Now, what's most important is his health and his sake. And again, this is hockey. they're always very tight-lipped about this. I mean, remember when the Hossa news came out? He was suffering with that for years. Nobody had any clue. Nobody.
Yeah, nobody knew. Just sort of boom, there it is.
And let's face it, since Hossa left, it's not the sole reason they've gone downhill, but the difference of having him and not having him, it's noticeable.
You were going to be at this point anyway, no matter what, because he probably still would not be on this team at this point. But the last few years, especially when he first was gone, you saw how much the Blackhawks missed him, how important he was for this team. Then he was like the glue that held them together and made them still formidable.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I think you're really missing Taze right now in a similar way because, say what you will about some of his production, I still think Taze, even in the years where he wasn't quite as good, was still a very solid all-around player. I mean, he's consistently scoring 20-plus goals a year, and he would have scored 20-plus goals last year had the pandemic not shortened the season. He was at 18 with 12 games left to play. He definitely would have scored 20-plus goals again, and he's done that every single year he's been in the league. The dude is a consistently good hockey player, and just what he brings as Captain Serious and just, his presence makes a huge difference. And look, even if Taze was here, this is still not a very good team, but it's definitely better than what it is now.
And then, are we ever going to see Brent Seabrook ever again?
Yeah, he kind of gets buried under all this. It's like, oh yeah, I mean, Seabrook is also MIA, and we don't know what's going on with him.
Can't he just retire?
Yeah, he had 2 surgeries, and I mean, if there's legit health issues, I mean, like Jonathan Taze, his legacy is sealed. He's got nothing left to prove, and he's older than Taze. I mean, he's 35, and he's got more miles on him. I mean, first of all, he's a defenseman. Second of all, he's been playing longer. And hey, he was a huge part of those Stanley Cups. There's nothing left for him to prove. So I have no idea what's going on with him. Is it complications of the surgery? Is it COVID related? I don't know. They just say unfit to play.
Unless that's punishment for him not wanting to trade and wanting to come back, even though he's unfit to actually be an NHL player at this point. I don't know, but I wish I understood the NHL salary cap more, because at the end of the season, can they buy him out?
Yeah, I have to look at the rules, because if I remember, like, there's like rules about going on long-term IR and all that stuff.
And there's rules about, does the team get punished if a player with a long-term contract retires during that contract? And
well, remember, Hossa had to be traded to the Coyotes, like the rights.
Right. And yet, the reason that he didn't screw the team was because he went on long-term IR rather than retire.
Right.
So I don't know how
there's ways to dance around it.
I don't know how the rules all quite work, but it's brutal,
And we're kind of in a tough position.
And with COVID, the NHL salary cap is going to, at best, be stagnant for 2 years, maybe longer.
Yeah. That's not good.
Nope.
If you're the Blackhawks, that is not good.
Nope. So we are looking at bad hockey for at least 3 more years.
Probably. I mean, this is not going to be an overnight fix. This is not going to be we just have to suffer through one season and then come back. This is going to be a battle for a while.
But don't worry, we promoted Stan Bowman.
And extended Jeremy Colleton.
Yes, so all is good.
I think the Blackhawks have just taken the Bulls' place. Gar Forman is secretly running the Blackhawks. He didn't leave the United Center. He refused to leave, so he was given an ultimatum. Either run the Blackhawks or we have to bring in the SWAT team to drag you out.
Oh, man.
I think Gar Forman he lives under the counters of one of the concession stands on the 300 level of the United Center. Like he's in his suit, but like he's just hunched over, like curled up in a ball, like under one of those, under one of the cabinets in the concession stand. And whenever he needs to eat something, his arm just reaches out, like grabs like a thing of nachos and quickly just pulls it in. The cabinet door closes.
All right. Do you want to talk some baseball or do you want to talk football?
We could touch on football really quick because I do have plenty of baseball thoughts.
So, I don't know about you, but after seeing the press conference where the George McCaskey and Ted Phillips basically pried open as a collective the Bears fans' mouths and took a giant shit in them.
Ew.
I don't know how else to grossly describe what they did, but it's everybody's recognizing what a sinking ship this is, and you're seeing coaching staff flee. Jay Rodgers gone, the running backs coach gone, the Dave Ragone gone. You're seeing people flee because they recognize that this is a sinking ship, and you couldn't bring in a veteran or even an experienced defensive coordinator because nobody wants to come for a coach that's already on the hot seat before the Super Bowl has even started.
And unfortunately, we kind of saw this coming.
We all saw this coming except for the idiots in charge.
Yep.
And so they promoted Sean Desai from safeties coach to defensive coordinator. And I know a lot of people are saying that, hey, that was a good move. And maybe it is. I'm not saying he's not a smart guy and not a good football guy. It's just a big promotion up. I thought Jay Rodgers was probably the logical choice.
Yeah.
Because he is a very hot commodity as far as the league goes. He would be the guy that you promote up. And I don't know if he left because he wasn't going to be offered it or he saw greener pastures elsewhere, but he left. And based on the names of the people that the Bears brought in from the external ranks of defensive coordinator, I'm happier about Sean Desai because, no offense, I don't want Mike Singletary.
Fuck no.
I don't want James Betcher. The last time that guy coached a defense, it was the 30th ranked defense.
When I saw that Mike Singletary story, I'm like, oh, God.
I thought it was a joke site because I saw somebody post a link and I was like, that's a joke site, right? That's like a, then they brought in Mike Ditka as an offensive coordinator. You're like,
nah, shut up.
But then I was like, oh, wait, they really did? This team is a joke.
Yes, it is.
And honestly, I have zero, hope that they're going to fix the quarterback issue.
No, of course not. Why would we have any hope? And I am not getting sucked into any Deshaun Watson trade rumors whatsoever. None
whatsoever. And he's already said the two teams that he wants to go to, and neither one of them is the Bears.
It was the Dolphins and the Jets?
Dolphins and the Jets.
He'd rather go to the Jets than the Bears. What does that fucking tell you?
It's, you know, the McCaskies are so inept. They're like, well, we trust these guys. Trust them to do what? Based on what? Ryan Pace is 6 years into this, and this team is still bad.
You know what I want to do is I want to go to Soldier Field and I want to find the McCaskies and I want to get some giant loudspeakers and I want to play the song Out of Touch by Hall & Oates because that's what they are. I just want to blast it in their ears.
And Allen Robinson's getting ready to go.
Yeah, he's getting the fuck out of here probably.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised.
So where do you go from here? And I keep seeing mock drafts, these early mock drafts, and they all have the Bears taking a guard in the first round. And it pisses me off because that's the one position the Bears don't need. They've got Daniels and Whitey Coat Hair.
Whitey Coat Hair.
I still can't believe that Wannstedt called him Whitey Coat Hair. But you've got Cody Whitehair and you've got James Daniels. Like you've got the guard position is okay. You know, it's tackles you need to upgrade. So if they're drafting a guard in the first round, I am going to drive down to Hallis Hall. I'm going to bypass it. I'm going to drive to Park Ridge and I'm going to Buffalo Bills fan puke all over Virginia's house.
she's just sitting on her porch, like enjoying a nice cup of tea, and all of a sudden just
there I am in giant stilts, just like stomping through her yard, just
crushing all her plants in the process, just puking everywhere.
I'm gonna be so livid. It's, you know, there's a couple of positions that you just, if they draft in the first round a guard, if they draft in the first round a kicker, if they draft in the first round a tight end, if they draft in the first round a punter, I'm going to just lose my mind. Every other position, I'm like, okay, I'm okay. But man, if they draft a guard or a tight end, I'm just going to lose my mind. They need tackles.
I'm still just picturing you on stilts, stomping through just a garden. Georgie, what's that outside?
I've dialed 911 and I'm ready to push the other one. What is going on?
Tell our gardener to turn on the sprinklers. These are having minimal effect. He's still walking around puking. Blah, blah, blah. As you're walking around, you're using the stilts to just stomp out the sprinklers and break them.
I've got one of those stage microphones that like go over your head like they wear in the Super Bowl performance so they can just amplify the sound of the puke. Her neighbors are filing noise complaints.
Yeah, there's some big dude in a Bears jersey on stilts just vomiting everywhere.
There's a man on stilts projectile vomiting all over my neighbor. But this team is just honest to God, the fact that they brought back Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy has set this organization back at least 3 years.
Yeah, pretty much.
And we'll be able, I mean, I'm just quickly looking at the financials of the salary cap situation, and it is brutal. It is brutal. And we'll have Brad from Over the Cap on, in a couple weeks to discuss it, but like in depth. But man, I don't know how they do anything unless they start robbing from Peter to pay Paul by, borrowing from future salary caps to pay for now. It is, they're in a tough spot, man.
Yep. And you know what makes this just even worse is we get to sit here and watch the Packers probably win a Super Bowl this year.
Right. And here's the thing is, I honest to God, if you would have brought in a good GM, I think there's things you could have done. We're like, okay, we're drafting 20th. I don't see them drafting a quarterback that's going to be able to help. But the market is suddenly becoming ripe for some veterans to be available. Matt Stafford has requested a trade. I would imagine that Matty Ice is probably going to be available. Jimmy Garoppolo might be available. Cam Newton is going to be available, but if another writer links him to the Bears, I'm going to projectile vomit again. But
how much vomit do you have in you?
I have 43 years of being a Bear fan amount of vomit.
Wow, poor Virginia's lawn is going to be completely ruined.
I'm going to spell out puke with my puke in her lawn. Burn the grass. I'm going to salt the earth there.
Ew. That is so gross.
The gardener's like, Miss Virginia, we cannot get anything to grow here.
I'm so sorry to our listeners.
I'm so sorry for my family probably sitting in the next room going, what is wrong with him? So, I mean, I think a competent GM could come in here and be like, listen, you don't ever need to go through a full rebuild in the NFL. We bring in a veteran quarterback. We stabilize the rest of the roster. We implement a new system, and suddenly we're competitive again. If you add a Matt Stafford into this fold, you know what? You're that much better.
I mean, would that even ever be a realistic possibility considering he's in division?
I don't see that happening. But stranger things have happened.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a number of teams that will be a really good fit for the Bears or for Matthew Stafford. And I think the Bears would love to have a guy like Matt Stafford. I just don't think there's ever any possibility of that.
I mean, it's looking more and more every day like Sam Darnold is going to be available. I don't know if he's the answer anywhere, but he's got to be a more realistic answer than what the Bears have right now, which is Nick Foles and Tyler Bray.
Ugh.
You just repair the offensive line and you let a guy sit for a couple years and he's suddenly good. Well, Tyler Bray's been sitting there for 9 seasons. And guess what? He's never going to be good.
Interesting how Tom Ricketts had input on this.
So I'm just so furious watching. I mean, if the Bears had done it right, they would be the Buffalo Bills right now.
Yeah.
I mean, if Trubisky was any good, that's what the Bears would look like right now.
Yep. Can I just blank the Bears out of my mind for a few months?
Sure.
You can go puke on Virginia's lawn. I'm just going to block it out. Make it nice and musical, too, like classic music, like blah, 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 blah.
I take requests. What do you want to hear, Virginia?
I want to hear the boogie woogie.
Can you do a 23 skidoo?
A 23 skidoo and puke. Is that A minor or C sharp?
Oh, God. Why?
Yeah, that's what I ask all the time.
So let's move to baseball here.
I got plenty of thoughts.
Well, I mean, we finally brought in Shelby Miller after all these years of talking about getting him to the Cubs.
And we didn't have to trade Javi Baez.
You're right. We didn't have to trade Javi Baez. We got him for a non-guaranteed spot for $875,000.
That trade for the Arizona Diamondbacks might go down as one of the worst trades ever.
Yeah, that was not a good one.
No, but the thing is that going into that first season with the Diamondbacks, Shelby Miller was a dang good pitcher.
You know what? It's funny. You know, you get the pitchers and they get to that point where Shelby Miller was, and they take a turn one way or the other. It's either they make that turn into like superstardom or they fizzle out.
Yeah.
And Marcus Stroman is at that precipice. You're like, is he going to be good or is he going to fizzle out? You know, you see other guys. It's like what's his name with the Yankees? The guy they just paid all the money to last year.
Oh, Garrett Cole.
Garrett Cole. When he was with the Pirates, you were like, okay, is this guy gonna fizzle out? Like, who was the pitcher that they had before that they were so high on the Pirates? Man, I'm having such a blank in my brain tonight. Zach somebody or other.
Zach Duke.
Yeah, like that was a guy that they were so high on.
Yeah.
And suddenly he just fizzled, and you're like, all right, is Garrett Cole gonna be that guy and fizzle? And nope. He just earned himself a poop ton of money and looked really good.
Well, it also sounds like too, Mr. Garrett Cole has been putting some stuff on those baseballs.
Oh, Garrett Cole. But we have a backup catcher now.
You know what is crazy? The Cubs and all their crap that they've done with money and financials have spent more money than anyone in the NL Central to this date.
Who have they spent any money on?
Austin Romine.
What was he, like $1 million?
Yeah. The Cardinals have done nothing. The Brewers have done nothing. The Pirates are selling what little they have, and the Reds have done nothing.
Do you know what Austin Romine's slash line was as a career, or his career slash line is?
I was looking at it the other day, actually, because I was actually writing about backup catcher options, and Austin Romine did come up, but I can't remember off the top of my head.
His career slash line is 239, 278, 361. In 1,251 plate appearances.
Well, what I could tell about Austin Romine is he's your prototypical backup catcher. He's a pretty good catcher. It kind of sucks that you're losing that versatile bat that you had with Caratini because he was a switch hitter and it looked like he was kind of finding a groove at the plate too. And you're basically going down to your typical backup catcher, which, you know, if he was a depth piece, fine. I don't even mind him as a backup catcher. It's just, you know, there's another piece that's not going to be contributing much offense for you.
The most exciting part about this signing is on MLB Trade Rumors when this signing was announced. One of the comments was, "The stove is catching on fire."
Yeah. Though the dominoes are starting to fall.
To Toronto.
Well, I mean, the White Sox landed Liam Hendricks. I mean, that was a big deal, and that was what, 2 weeks ago, a little over a week ago.
That was a big one. I would still like to see the White Sox sign another starting pitcher and bring in some more outfield depth.
Yeah, I was really thinking that they would have a strong run at a guy like Michael Brantley. I don't know what other moves they can make going forward. Will they spend any more money? I mean, they're still going to need a backup catcher, right? Because James McCann is gone. They could use a DH. I think Marcelo Ozuna would be a good fit there. I just don't know if they're in on him because I've heard a bunch of rumored teams in on Marcelo Ozuna, but the White Sox haven't come up lately. Though, that doesn't necessarily mean they won't make a run at him. I'm just saying, I think Marcelo Ozuna could be a DH candidate or something because despite winning a Gold Glove in like 2017, his defense isn't very good, but he's a very productive bat, and it sounds like the Braves aren't going to be bringing him back for whatever stupid reason. So that's a guy that I have thought of for the White Sox. I just don't know if they're going to get him. One thing seems fairly certain to me, and I feel 99% on this, but I don't think they're getting Trevor Bauer, the White Sox.
I heard a rumor, they were talking about it on the Score, of the Dodgers possibly going in on him.
Yeah.
What the hell? Would every good pitcher, for the most part, be in Southern California?
Yeah. I mean, think about it. I think the teams right now, as it stands right now, most likely to land Bauer are like Dodgers, Yankees, and Blue Jays.
Mets.
I would say. And Mets. Yeah, because the Mets were in on George Springer. And obviously he went to the Blue Jays. Think about the Mets, though. If you have like a healthy Thor, which I don't know if he's ever healthy these days, and then you have Jacob deGrom, and then you add Trevor Bauer potentially to the mix, you could have something pretty special.
You could have a team that fired their general manager 10 minutes into his reign.
Yeah, that whole thing is bad. And what is really kind of a shame, especially, it's a shame it happened, period. But
he was with the Cubs when he did it.
He was with the Cubs when that happened, and according to the employee that knew about it, he didn't tell anybody else with the organization. We don't know 100% if that's true or not, and the organization claims they didn't know about it. I'm not going to make any speculations whether they did know about it or not. Regardless, it's a shame to see that happen. And what the hell, dude? Take a hint. 64 texts or whatever it was? Freaking weirdo.
It was like the one day there was like how many texts of things that she didn't respond to that were like G-rated, like pictures of the restaurant at the hotel and outside the hotel. And you're like, okay, well, after all of those texts, she didn't respond once. So then he's like, well, let me send a picture of the bulge in my pants. Okay, that didn't work. Let me just send my wiener then. Like, what point do you just snap? Like,
seriously, what a freaking creep. And it's such a shame that female reporters are still going through that kind of stuff. Like, this needs to be a wake-up call.
I mean, honestly, what, out of all the times it's happened, what punishment has the person who did it actually gotten? This is the first time he got fired. Okay. He'll probably get another job.
You think? I'm not so sure. The way things are changing now, I'm not so sure.
I mean, what happened to Brett Favre when he did it?
That was in what, 2008?
Mm-hmm.
Well, again, I think things were different. I think even if this happened 5 years ago, things would be different. I think now we're finally starting to make some progress with that kind of thing. I just don't think it's going to be tolerated like it used to. That's my opinion, though.
We'll see. I mean, it's really frustrating that it happened, during his tenure with the Cubs.
It is. If I could just get off topic really quick here, this Bulls game is going incredibly poorly. We were just talking about how good they were, or at least the improvements. They're down 20-8. So you could blame us for that. Anyway,
Sorry.
Back to what we were saying. Sorry. Anyway, back to what we were saying. Yeah, it is a shame. It was awful to hear. Yeah, I hope we can make some real progress that, female personnel don't have to go through that kind of thing.
It's frustrating. But, I mean, back to the Cubs topic here is, this team is going to be brutal. And the Chicago sports in general are going to be brutal this season.
The White Sox are the only team with hope.
Yeah,
I mean, really.
That's it. The Blackhawks, no hope. Bears, no hope. Bulls on the rise, but they're still a good ways away from being competitive. And the Cubs are they might win the division, but
they're not going to go on a run or a legit World Series run.
There's an absolute 0% chance that they win the World Series. 0.
And heck, they could, by opening day, they may have traded a Wilson Contreras or a Chris Bryant.
Yeah, I mean or both.
Or both. Who the hell knows? I mean, you got to make room for that big Austin Romine contract, right?
Yeah, you gotta pay for that somehow.
Sean, we have said for the past few weeks, we have said goodbye to Theo Epstein, Kyle Schwarber, John Lester, Jose Quintana, Tyler Chatwood, Yu Darvish, Victor Caratini.
Yep.
Our rotation is going to be turned completely flip side. I wrote about the rotation for Cubby's Crib, and if you want to check that out, you can check that out at cubbyscrib.com. I projected our rotation, and you want to hear what my projection was?
Sure.
Kyle Hendricks 1, Zach Davies 2, Alec Mills 3, Adbert Alzolay 4, and a 5 is an option between Braylon Marquez, Tyson Miller, or Shelby Miller. Now, with all that being said, the expectations for the rotation are obviously not going to be high. But, if you want to look at this in a positive way, maybe this year gives us a good look at our 2 future pitching pieces. Braylon Marquez, I'm pretty sure, is their number 1 ranked prospect right now. And he's going to have to pitch eventually. So if you're not going to go all in this year and you feel that Braylon Marquez is ready to throw in the big leagues, you might as well see what he has, right?
I mean, it's true.
And the same with Adbert Alzolay. We have seen him pitch in bit roles, and we've seen some promise. I think the stuff does look good. So I think this year you take the training wheels off because you don't really have much of a choice. You need somebody to pitch. Take the training wheels off and say, all right, Adbert, you're going to be pitching every 5 days. You're going to be a starter. If you're going to be a future of our team, let's see what you got.
And according to MLB.com, Braylon Marquez is the Cubs' number 1 prospect.
There you go. Now, would I be surprised if Braylon Marquez maybe started in the minors or started in the bullpen? No. I think if Shelby Miller does well enough in spring training, he'll have a crack at the rotation because there's literally no depth. And that's the scary thing too, Sean. Let's say, Kyle Hendricks is having a usual Kyle Hendricks year. Zach Davies, Zach Davies isn't a bad pitcher. He's just a 4-5 type guy, basically being forced into a number 2 position. Let's say he's pitching well. Alec Mills is pitching to a 4.5 ERA, just some good, some bad. And then you got Adbert Alzolay pitching, and then you got Braylon Marquez going, and you say, maybe it's not quite as bad as we feared. And then what if somebody gets hurt? Then what do?
The same thing is what if Zach Davies is, because he's only under contract this year.
Right.
So what if he pitches decently? And are you could you flip him at the trade deadline? Or are you painting yourself into a corner because you don't have anybody to pitch?
Well, here's the thing. If you're at the trade deadline and you're not contending, and if he's doing well, I think you got to trade him. And you know what? At that point, who really cares who you pitch if you're not in the race? If you're not in the race and you're not going to be winning, at that point, it doesn't really matter. So I think he is a candidate to be flipped. Now, here's the thing, though. Even if he's pitching well and you flip him, you're not going to be getting a blockbuster because you're trading a poor man's Kyle Hendricks here. It's not like you're trading a cost-controlled, young, lively arm. At best, you get a small something, even if he's pitching well. But I think you got to get something if he's pitching well and you're not in it.
Honestly, all you're trying to do is just restock that farm system. You're probably going to get you're probably going to go for a guy that's I'm guessing where the expectation is he's going to be come up in 2024 ish.
Sure. Like the Yu Darvish prospects.
Right. That sort of time frame. I think that's where you're looking, and that's where those are boom or bust type trades, because if you're able to identify something in somebody and then develop them, then that's where you actually looks like you got a blockbuster trade. Case in point, the James Shields trade. They identified a very young player in Tatis, and they developed him. And now look at the blockbuster. The huge trade that you traded a guy that you didn't want. Essentially, isn't this the similar type deal? Dumping a James Shields and dumping a Zach Davies. So if you're able to identify correctly a young prospect, like a really young prospect, somebody that's 3, 4, 5 years away, you could get a big haul. And I think that's what the Cubs are hoping for.
Yeah, I think so too. I just hope that Zach Davies can pitch as well as he had last year with San Diego, because he pitched very well last year with San Diego.
Yeah, he pitched.
If you look at the numbers, he had a good year.
Yeah, he had a decent year. That was on a very good team too.
In a very pitcher-friendly ballpark.
True.
But there's one more big Cubs thing that I think we got to touch on, Sean, and I'm sure you know what I'm thinking, and that is saying goodbye to John Lester.
I didn't think they would bring him back. Apparently once he got the contract offer, he offered the Cubs the opportunity to match, and they said no. And that's not shocking at all, because the Cubs weren't going to pay for a guy, especially not trying to compete. What do you get, $5 million?
Yeah, from the Nationals.
The Cubs aren't going to spend $5 million.
No, and if you're going to spend $5 million, look, I know David Kaplan and other people were upset about the disrespect towards John Lester, who was one of your biggest signings in franchise history, and we will forever be in debt to what John Lester did for this franchise. What he did can't be just put into one sentence. He was one of the main reasons this franchise turned around. We can't say enough about him. He will be a Cub for life. But the fact of the matter is, he just doesn't have much left. I mean, look at last year. When he was playing against, playoff teams, big teams, they were hitting the crap out of him. The velocity is gone, the movement's gone, and he was just getting bombarded.
True.
And if you're going to spend $5 million, if your budget is tight, if your budget is really, really tight, I'm not saying that I like that it's tight or it should be tight, but the fact of the matter is it is tight. You're going to spend it on something that you think is going to be worthwhile. And while I get it, I get that John Lester, deserves our respect for eternity, but you're going to want to spend wisely. And 37-year-old John Lester, you're not going to spend it on that.
When you can get 6 Shelby Millers for that same amount.
What a deal. I think it's a shame, though, that it ended like this. I mean, we pretty much knew that the end of this contract wasn't going to be as pretty. We were paying for the first 3 years of John Lester, and we were able to get 4 very good years out of John Lester. The fact that we got 4 out of 6, and we got that World Series, and we got several great postseason performances. I mean, in my opinion, 2016, what he did in the regular season and the postseason in 2016, that 1 year alone, that made the contract worth it. That completely made it worth it. It's just a shame that it had to end in a situation where he is leaving like a bunch of rats leaving a sinking ship. And Benny the Bull is now posing as Bernie Sanders on a chair with mittens and a coat with his legs crossed. Oh my gosh. That's funny. I'm sorry. I had to mention that.
Yeah, I'm quickly looking. John Lester. So, according to Baseball Reference, where is his projections? Do you know what they project John Lester with for his stats?
I'm going to say an ERA in the high 4s, lower 5s.
4.53.
4.53, really?
Mm-hmm.
Here's the thing. If John Lester pitched pretty decently in Washington, I wouldn't say I'd be overly surprised. I really wouldn't be. The last few years have been rough, unfortunately.
And Shelby Miller's projected ERA is 5.67.
Oh God.
With
that low?
With a 1.522 whip.
Jesus.
9.4 hits per 9, 1.6 home runs per 9. Yeah.
Not great.
What else with Lester here? He's projected to have a 1.421 whip, 9.6 hits per 9, 1.4 home runs for 9. 2.52 strikeout to walk. Neither one of those are very good.
No, I mean, at least you say with John Lester, he's just old and
Shelby Miller's
worn out.
Shelby Miller's barely 30.
Yeah, I know. He just fell off he just dropped like a rock. John Lester is just natural aging.
Yeah, the guy's arm is 200 years old.
Yeah. But I mean, either way, I mean, this Cubs team has a lot of issues. I mean, they just solved the backup catcher issue, but there's plenty of issues left to be solved, and they're not going to be spending money. So it's going to be a frustrating year on the north side. There's no question about it. But you know what? I'll give the White Sox some major credit for going out and spending.
They did do some spending, but is it enough? They're nowhere near being a top tier spending team when every other team most other teams are shedding payroll. You've got players that are out there. Go for it. You've got a really good team. Shore up those holes. Put the best team you can out there. Spend a little bit of money. The difference between this team being where they are now and if you were to bring in, Marcell Ozuna and Trevor Bauer, you bring in both. Let's see. What is the MLB team salary? All right. What do you think Marcell Ozuna costs you a year?
Marcell Ozuna?
Yeah.
Geez, I don't even know what he made last year. He was on a 1-year deal last year. Jeez. Marcell Ozuna. It's got to be over 10 million, I would assume. Market value. It's so hard to judge a market right now, just with the way things are. Let's say.
Excuse me.
Bless you. About 18, 19, 20 million.
I'm going to even go on the low end of that. I'm going to go 18. Let's go 18.
18? Okay.
What's Trevor Bauer going to cost you?
Trevor Bauer might cost you a pretty penny. Are we looking at AAV here? Are we looking annual?
Yeah.
I'm going to say somewhere in the 20 millions. Let's be conservative and say 26, 27 million.
All right, I'm going to say 26. I'm going to say it's 27. So,
and that's being conservative.
So that would put the White Sox at a payroll of 165 million this year, which would just move them above the league average. It would move them to the 11th highest payroll in baseball. And they would still be spending less than half of what the Mets are spending this year.
Wow.
The Mets payroll right now is $333.8 million.
Steve Cohen's spending some money.
So you have the room to spend and not even move into the top 10 in salaries as the White Sox. And suddenly you go from a team that's going to be in the competing for a World Series to arguably the team to beat.
I think as it is, the White Sox are one of the teams to beat. But yeah, no, I agree that they could do more. I definitely agree they could do more. And, I just want to go on the Liam Hendricks thing for one bit. Props to them for opening the pocketbook for him. I'm not trying to criticize the signing. I just wonder if they put themselves on a spend limit and they invested a lot of money in a reliever. And I'm not saying it's not going to pay off. I'm just wondering if maybe they would have wanted to spread out some of that a bit more. I don't know. Liam Hendricks has been the best reliever in baseball the past 2 years. I'm just going to give you a very honest concern of mine that might not even be a concern. I want to get your thoughts on it.
the way you look at it is this offense is potent.
Yes.
If you get the lead, you're between the middle relief of this team and the closing, like the closer situation. If you get a lead early in this game, it's slamming the door on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even if it's a close game, you're locking it up because, your 7, 8, 9 innings, you're probably not giving up very many runs, and you're probably scoring a solid amount of runs. So, but my philosophy is if you can really boost your starting lineup or your starting rotation and then hand it off to a really good bullpen, then, and with all the runs you score, you are just a brutal team. What was their playoff rotation?
Last year?
Mm-hmm.
Gio, Heichel, and then bullpen, basically.
Now, if you can throw in, the same top two guys, and you add in their Lance Lynn and Trevor Bauer, that's a big difference.
No one's beating you. If they're healthy and pitching to their top, no one's beating you.
You don't have
period.
You don't have to worry about what ifs and any kind of big ifs on your young pitchers in that situation, because guess what? It doesn't matter. You've already bolstered it. And
right.
And if your young pitchers look good, guess what? You could always trade somebody.
You think they make a trade this offseason? Another one? They traded for Lance Lynn. You think they make another trade?
I don't know. I just feel like they do need to add another starting pitcher. And it seems they probably don't want to spend, or they're not allowed to spend. But
I don't think Trevor Bauer's happening.
I mean, it would be cool, but you're right. I don't see that happening. Maybe they make a trade. I mean, it would have been fun to see Jose Quintana go back.
Yeah, he's with the Angels now.
Yeah, he is. He's with Joe Madden.
Yeah, exactly.
That unstoppable duo.
Yeah, right. I'm reading the latest CBS report with Trevor Bauer. The Mets are still looking to make a high-profile free agent signing. Trevor Bauer certainly qualifies. The Mets are considering a Bauer signing, according to Ken Rosenthal. Mets. The Dodgers are also said to be among teams interested in Bauer. I mean, I feel like Bauer would not say no to going to the White Sox. I think if they made him a decent offer, they could land him. And, maybe there will be a surprise. I'm just saying that right now I'm not fully counting on it. But that would be a heck of an addition if they were to land Trevor Bauer. It really would be. And I just want to go back quickly on Liam Hendriks, where I was kind of going back and forth on it. I commend them for spending, and I think he's a really good reliever. One of my slight concerns, and maybe tell me if I'm overthinking this, and I'm not saying this is necessarily going to happen, it's just the track record with people like Liam Hendriks. And I don't want to cause any White Sox fans to panic or sound like, oh, I'm just downplaying the signing. I'm not. I think he'll be incredibly good this coming year. I always just get a little concerned when you see failed starters turned relievers over 30, because oftentimes they tend to fizzle out fairly quickly. But if the White Sox could honestly get 2 years of dominating Hendriks, I think you'll take it. And I'm not even saying that's going to happen. I'm just saying that's the one slight concern I might have. I mean, look at last year with Colomé. He was really good last year. You already had a good closer, and you're getting one whose ceiling is much higher. I mean, let's face it. The best that we've seen of Colome is nowhere near, as good as he is nowhere near as we've seen of Liam Hendricks. The only thing with Alex Colome was that you go back and forth on is you pretty much know what you're getting from Alex Colome, where with Liam Hendricks, he just kind of rediscovered things within the past few years. How long can he keep it going? Maybe he'll keep it going along for a while. I don't know. I think it's worth taking the risk. Absolutely worth taking the risk. I'm just saying sometimes I worry about those types of relievers because relievers are one of the most unpredictable things in baseball.
I'm looking at the Mets salaries. Francisco Lindor, $22 million. Jacob deGrom, $22 million. Marcus Stroman, $19 million. Juris Familia, $17 million. Michael Conforto, $12.25 million. Carlos Carrasco, $12 million. Noah Syndergaard, $10 million. James McCann, $8 million. Trevor May, $8 million. Edwin Diaz, $7 million. And you keep just going down this list. Bobby Bonilla, $1.19 million. wait. Brett Saberhagen, $250,000. Brett Saberhagen is also still on their salary.
My goodness.
Oh my goodness.
We brought up Marcelo Zuna. This is the latest on him. Let's see. I just had it up. Where'd it go? Okay, so right now, here are 6 teams showing interest, and apparently he's seeking up to a 4-year deal around Red Sox, Yankees, Dodgers, Mets, Twins, Brewers. If I had to put money on where he would go, I think the Red Sox are a real good candidate to land him. That's kind of my guess right now.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm looking at these. I'm looking at these updated payroll charts. What the heck? Spot Track was. Because now they've got a different one. The same website. Is it something with luxury tax? Is that what?
You weren't looking at prorated from last year, were you?
No. Because now it's got their payroll for the Mets at 166, which is high. But because they had them before, it said 333 million. I'm like, that's ridiculous. So wait, where? If I go back far enough here.
While you're looking at that, I'm looking at a few starting pitchers on the board that either the Cubs or the White Sox could possibly look at. So one's remaining. You see Jake Arrieta, Masahiro Tanaka, Jordan Zimmerman, Jeff Samardzija, Cole Hamels, Jake Odorizzi, Trevor Bauer, obviously. Mike Leake is apparently available. Okay, cool. Let's see. James Paxton is another one. Anibal Sanchez, Julio Teheran, who are both being observed in workouts. We saw a similar thing happen with Corey Kluber, and he signed with the Yankees, and he signed for a lot more than I think people were thinking would happen. So, if one of those guys looks good, do the Cubs maybe bring one of those guys in? I think if you're going to look at the Cubs adding another rotation guy, it's going to be someone like that. Where the White Sox, I feel like they don't want to take a flyer on a guy. They might, but I feel like they'd want to try to bring somebody in that's just, more established, more primed to make a run at a World Series this year. But I don't know. I mean, right now their top three are Lynn, Giolito, and Keuchel, and that's pretty good right there. I just think you might want to add some depth.
Do you know what team in MLB for 2021 has the lowest payroll?
The A's?
No, the A's are... 24th.
The Rays?
They're 27th.
The Pirates?
They're 29th.
The Brewers?
The Brewers are 22nd.
The Reds?
No, Reds are 18th.
Okay. Yeah, that didn't make sense when I said that. The Marlins?
The Marlins are 26th. I'll give you a hint. It is almost half of what Pittsburgh is paying in salary.
Dear God. Okay. It's not the Cardinals. It's obviously not the Phillies. It's not the Dodgers or the Angels.
I'll give you a hint. Their team payroll.
Is it Seattle?
Their team payroll. Oh wait, that's.
It's not
last
Seattle,
year.
is it?
No, it is not.
The Rangers?
Nope.
It's not the Braves. Don't tell me. Don't tell me.
I will tell you that.
The Giants?
Nope. I will tell you though that
The Tigers?
Nope.
The Royals?
Nope. Same division.
The Indians?
Indians.
Wow.
Their payroll is $23 million.
What a shame. You want to talk about cheap asses? You want to talk about cheap ass owners who outwardly said, enjoy Francisco Lindor while you can because we're not going to pay him? Oh.
Yeah,
Awful.
I'm looking. There are 23. Wait. 23, 45. Come on. Why are you frozen? Oops. There are 23 players in Major League Baseball that make more than the entire Cleveland Indians roster.
Yikes.
Their entire roster is essentially the salary that Jason Hayward makes.
Well, Sean, I think this says something really important here. I mean, whether you think the White Sox have enough to win the World Series this year, they got to have enough to win the division, right?
You would think so.
I mean, at the very least, it's division title or bust. Like, at the very least.
I mean, if the White Sox don't go, reasonably far in the playoffs, you have to consider that a failure.
Of course.
And it's sad though that they're not willing to go the extra effort. I think they have the money, and it's a year when it's going to be a very cold stove this offseason, I think. I mean,
take advantage as much as you can.
Yeah, you're going to have the top guys are going to get money, but there's going to be a mid-level guys that are just there for the taking.
Sure.
And they're going to sit there, and the league knows this. The Players Association knows this. Just take advantage of it.
You think Nelson Cruz has a chance at landing his White Sox DH?
Maybe.
I know there have been maybe some rumblings there. It would just be so Chicago sports luck, though, if he came back, if he came to the White Sox and he finally decided he's going to be too old to play.
I just want one team in Chicago to make a complete run for it and try to win it all, because we are stuck in no man's land otherwise.
Yeah. I really thought, if there was a free agent where I thought the White Sox really had a good shot at, that was Michael Brantley, who just went back to the Astros. I think that guy would have been a good fit on the Sox.
Wait, I'm sorry. What was that?
I thought Michael Brantley would have been a good fit for the
I
Sox.
thought so too. I thought that would have been a low key move that would have been really awesome for that team.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Hey, you know who is available? Ryan Braun. Could you imagine if the Cubs signed him?
Do not want.
37 years old. Yadi Molina is still available. It sounds like negotiations are kind of troubled. You know what? What I say?
What if the Cubs traded Wilson Contreras and signed Yadi Molina?
I would go to Tom Ricketts' house, get on stilts, and puke all over the place. We're going to synchronize our watches. It's like, all right, the crack of dawn, 7 o'clock. You head to McCaskey's house. I'm going to head to Ricketts' house. We got our stilts ready. Let's get puking.
Man.
Yoenis Cespedes is available. His projected value is only $1.5 million.
He's trying to make a comeback here.
I would say hell no to Yoenis Cespedes and the Cubs. But if the Cubs aren't going to do dick this summer, why not? Give him a shot. Who cares? This is where I am, Sean. At this point, this is where I am. Where I am so desperate for them to do anything. Like, going to the off season every year, I have a list of do's and do nots. I have a list of guys who I would want top to bottom from priority high to low. And guys like, at this point, Yoenis Cespedes and Jake Arrieta and Ryan Braun and Yadi Molina and Jeff Samardzija would be all normally just no's at this point. They're all old, hurt, washed up, whatever. But at this point, if you want to bring back Jake Arrieta, fine. If you want to bring in Yoenis Cespedes to say fuck it, see if he's got anything left, why not? Who cares? This year, if you want to bring in Ryan Braun just for the novelty of it, whatever. This is where I am, Sean, with this team. Isn't that sad?
This team is a sideshow circus.
I mean, it really is. It really is. And, we could say over and over how, we think the Sox should be doing more and more and more. Well, I still think they're good enough to make a run at a World Series if everything falls right. I mean, they're going to be a fun, exciting team. The Cubs are just going to be... They're just going to be there. So, you know what? If you're just going to be there, just do whatever. Who cares? Heck, make them spin plates on... like poles like those acrobats do when they go up to the plate. Whatever. That is how so fuck it mode I am at this point, because they're clearly not trying to be the best of the best. And if you're not going to try to be the best of the best, just do something to do something so it's at least somewhat semi-interesting. Make a weird move for the hell of it, just so there's some borderline entertaining weirdness to talk about.
I'm just so not looking forward to whatever the Cubs are going to trot out.
It's not going to be fun. It's going to be mediocre enough where it's going to be like the Bears. It feels like it's going to be like the Bears. I don't see this as the Cubs stand right now. I don't see them being awful. but they're not going to be that good. I see them as an 80-82 win team.
Really?
And you know what? Yeah.
I think that would be so bad that if they can win that many games, because it's going to embolden the shitty situation that they're putting us in. But
I know
we ran no salary, and we were able to win 80-82 games. I mean, what's their payroll going to look like when they move on from Rizzo and Contreras and Bryant?
Mm-hmm. What do you think they're going to finish at right now? Don't think about a future potential trade of Bryant or Contreras. Don't think about that right now. Think of the team as it stands right now, 123-21. Where would you project them at?
And playing 162?
Yes.
78.
78. I mean, I can't argue with that. I just feel that they'll at least, like, look at last year. All of their key core guys had really down years. I just feel like the chances of that happening again are low. So if you still have Bryant and he's playing a lot better and he's playing for a contract, I think he's going to play much better. I think Rizzo and Baez are going to bounce back. Missing Schwarber's power is going to be a noticeable hole. And, you know, the rotation falling apart is not great. But I think if those core guys bounce back, and I think if you get Kyle Hendricks and Zach Davies pitching okay, and maybe one of your pitching prospects, either Marquez or Adbert Alzolay, bounces back, it'll be enough to be in the mix. And again, the division is not good. And you know what? If you tell me in the future that this team is going to win like 73 games, would I be shocked? Of course not. Of course not. I think that they could be that bad. I just think right now, the way I'm just looking at this is, if you keep the rest of the core, at least to start the year, and they're playing better than they did last year, because I don't think they could have two career worst years in a row, that you'll at least do enough to be semi-competitive / competitive. But do I think they're winning any more than like 82, 83 games? No.
I'm trying to find some team projections here.
You won't actually find a number. It's just going to be a little like, you know, the symbol for like the volumes, the symbol like on a computer. You're going to find that and you're going to click it and it's just going to go bleh.
I don't see anybody has projections yet. I mean, I guess we still have, you know, it's
kind of early.
Yeah, we're still way early.
You're going to start seeing projections in a few weeks when we hit February.
Yeah, I mean, once we start seeing, you know, some spring training games. I'm seeing one, it said bold predictions and said Cubs will be below 500. I don't know how bold that is. Is there anything else you wanted to add?
No, I think I've said my piece.
All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for this episode of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. I want to thank everybody so much for listening. Please hit subscribe however you listen to podcasts, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, TuneIn app, Google Play, Spotify. Share this podcast with your friends. That's how we grow the show. Follow us on social media at Swerski Sports, Facebook.com/Swerski Sports, SwerskiSports.com. Also follow us at stiltpuke.org. And thank you guys so much for listening. And until next time, bear down.
Cubs win! What a lucky break! The good Lord wants the Cubs to win!
We thank Ditka and God for all they have provided.
Cubs win! Cubs win! Cubs win!
Oh, I don't want her. You can have her. She's a Packer fan. She can't fit in my van.
And she looks like number New Yorkers. Smoking crack is not legal on planes.
Bears 31 to -7.
The Bears. Oh, when the Bears go bearing down.